right, so welcome back. Sorry, there was a little snafu there with the videotape. So we were talking about horizontal consolidation, which is the type of monopoly that we attribute to John D. Rockefeller. Horizontal consolidation is where you take one company, let's take Standard Oil because that's the example that we're talking about. So Standard Oil, and house under the brand of Standard Oil several smaller companies that are bought up so that Standard Oil doesn't have to compete with those companies on the marketplace. Standard Oil actually owns them, or at least owns the majority stock in those companies. So Standard Oil is going to buy up several other smaller companies, like for example, Gage's Oil, or Caitlin's Oil, or Miss Bryan's Oil, for example. So Standard Oil is actually going to be made up, the big umbrella company is going to be made up of smaller, more independent oil companies who are going to share their profits with Standard Oil. Now the problem in this scenario, even in the Gilded Age, was that it was illegal for one company to own the majority stock in another company. Rockefeller was a pretty savvy businessman, and he got around this idea by changing the terminology that we use to talk about monopolies. He changed the terminology to call this relationship between Standard Oil and these smaller oil companies to be one of a trust. And that's pretty easy to remember because this is in fact a relationship, and relationships are built on the idea of trust. So these companies are going to work together in a relationship where they share profits with each other. Trust is really another name for monopoly. You'll recognize this terminology because we use this today in business terms. When we talk about the people who run this kind of business model, we talk about it as if it's a board of trustees. R-U-S-T-E-S. Okay, trustees. So all these folks are going to share the responsibility of running this whole company together. Of course, Rockefeller is going to be the chairman of the board of trustees. So trusts are really monopolies, and they're a way that Rockefeller got around anti-monopoly laws. So in this time period, you see anti-monopoly laws pop up. They're not very strong because if you remember back, we talked about this being a laissez-faire system in the Gilded Age where the government really doesn't get into the business of regulating businesses. But we do see some laws pop up because either horizontal or vertical consolidated companies really aren't good for consumers. They control the price of products, making them as high as they want to, and because they control that particular corner of the market, consumers have to buy those products regardless of the price or within the boundaries of what they can afford. So trusts or monopolies really aren't good for consumers. So the government recognized that, and they started to put some limits on monopoly building. You'll recognize those legislations, those pieces of laws that tried to regulate trusts because they are called antitrust laws. And the first one was Sherman. The Sherman Antitrust Act. It really didn't do much, but it was a start. We really see the majority of our antitrust laws, our laws to get around this monopoly building that's happening in the Gilded Age, come in the next period, and that is the Progressive Era. And the presidents of the Progressive Era, like Teddy Roosevelt and Taft and Wilson, really were trust busters. They really wanted to get rid of monopolies. But monopolies have to do havoc in the marketplace first before that we can fix that problem or recognize that we have a problem to fix, and that comes in our next chapter. So thanks for listening to your lecture on monopolies. I'll see you in class tomorrow.